Well, I mean, hi there. Welcome to Director's Debrief, episode, I want to say 13. Ram's gone home.
Yeah. Let's call it 14.
Let's call it 14.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are in a slightly different place. You want to explain where we are?
Yeah, we're in our office, our top office, just in the fulfillment center. So the day-to-day ops guys are here. We're sometimes here as well.
Yeah.
When we're not on calls and things. So yeah, we're here, and it's actually really nice to be out here because sometimes when we're in our main office, it feels a bit, I don't know.
All day is a bit claustrophobic in that, I've noticed.
It is. Yeah. It's great because you crack on with your work.
Yeah.
But then you remember, and I think that it's like almost like you're remote working down there.
Yeah.
And then we're back up here.
Can I kind of call you out on something?
Okay.
How do you constantly work in silence? Very few times do I come and see you and you've got music playing or something. I know you're in and out of calls quite a lot, but
yeah,
you've seen me, right? First chance I get,
yeah.
Ash, you mind if I chuck some?
Yeah. I don't get me wrong. I do enjoy the music when you put it on, so it doesn't put me off when you put it on. So you don't ask. But I don't know. I think it's something I learned at uni because at uni, or during schooling as well, I convinced myself that music was the best thing for me. It was the best way I revised. I convinced myself. I was like, without music, I can't revise. I can't do anything. Yeah. And that was purely just a way of me trying to listen to some music. But I realized my productivity was best when I'm just purely focused. And lyrical music would confuse me.
Yeah.
And even sometimes, just music in general, it stops me from focusing.
I'm getting that with podcasts at the moment, whereby I have to listen to a podcast that isn't that great. Not that great. That's really harsh because I'm really enjoying the podcast I'm listening to whilst I'm working. But I have separate.
What's it called? Director's Debrief? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That's the good one, right?
That's the one.
No, I have some ones that like grip me, like Diary of a CEO, Deep Dive with Ali Abdaal. Like those ones, I have to. It's almost like an activity. Like I genuinely enjoy watching Diary of a CEO. Like I'll put it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I have some other ones that, like, from a comedy aspect, I have two podcasts with comedians, Flagrant 2, which Harvey got me on with Andrew Scholes, and I'm forgetting the other one, but I'll tell Ram and he can edit it in.
Sure.
The comedy ones are the ones I listen to whilst working because I can have a giggle, but I don't have to focus. Music, not so much, but funnily enough, I know what you mean. It does distract, but I think more like the longevity of my session, of my work or study session, it does actually help me quite a bit to have music on, because in silence, like about half an hour in, I'm going,
sure, yeah. It can be overpowering, too much silence is not good for you because you're alone with your own thoughts. But I do see that for me, for some reason, we're all different. My best efforts and work come from when I'm just wholly focused, and that's sometimes why I'll be doing something, you'll be doing something. I think you're quite similar, and I struggle to converse with you whilst my mind is on a piece of work because I just can't. It's not that I'm ignoring someone. It's like I am not going to do anything to the best of my ability because I'm speaking to you, and I'm going to forget what I'm doing, and then I'm lost. Yeah,
I've learned to understand this very well about you, because initially, and this is exceptionally funny when someone else is in the room.
Yeah,
but I've noticed something about you. If I'm talking to you and I notice that, because you have different modes for I've noticed. So if you're just lightly working, as in you're maybe looking for the next thing you need to get done, you'll answer immediately. But if you're halfway through something, there is zero reaction from you. And what I tend to do, and maybe you've noticed this in the background, is I'll start speaking and then I'll tail off.
Okay.
And then, because I know every single time, you're not a rude person. Every single time, if you've heard me speak, you'll come back to me.
Yeah.
The second you're ready, you'll come back to me. And so that's what I'll do. Except now, if someone else is in the room, I'll start speaking, notice you're too busy, tail off, and then shoot a look at the person that's in the room.
Okay.
So I think I did this with Rinny the other day.
Yeah.
Where I said something, and I could tell. I tailed off, and I looked at Rinny and went, I get a load of this guy.
Yeah, I know. It's genuinely maybe something I need to work on in the way I react to it, and I appreciate it. But I could be on something, and if I've done it many times where I have cut it off, and then we've spoken. Oh, not just you, but I've gone. I've done something, or someone's gone there, and then it takes me about half an hour to 45 minutes to get back into what I'm doing. Probably not that long on every task, but it takes me way longer because I don't know. So what I'm doing now is I'm quickly writing down where I am with things.
Interesting.
Okay. So say, for example, you're like, Ash, blah, 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 client needs this.
Yeah.
I quickly put the last thought in my mind down on a bit of paper.
Yeah, you literally hit pause in your head, like a video game.
Yeah, literally, because then I know that, okay, those words there will get me back to where I need to be. Okay, it'll take me a couple of minutes, but far less time. And
Sorry, I'm so glad you said that because and we talked about Diary of CEO. I was listening to the episode with Johan Mari.
Yep.
And imagine you and I having a conversation. In fact, let me do one better. Imagine you and I having a conversation and my phone is there and I get a notification, right? I'm giving you my undivided attention.
Yeah.
But I get a text message there. Let's say it's from my mum and she goes, "Hey, I know you're coming around tomorrow. Can you bring, I don't know,
onions,
sure, lovely." And so you and I are talking, and then I just go, "Oh, Mum wants onions," and then I come back to you to get to the same level of attention. They did studies.
Yeah.
Have I asked you this before?
You haven't.
Okay.
No, but
how long do you? How long do you think it takes you? It takes me to get to you my full undivided attention once more.
I don't know. I probably said another couple of sentences at least before that, right?
Yeah.
How long are we talking?
We're talking about 23 minutes.
No way.
Yeah. That's what and I immediately unwound all of the notifications from my phone. And I think that is something where you have to recognize within yourself if that's you. And as soon as I heard it, it resonated hard because something I've noticed about you is you constantly have notifications going on.
Yeah.
But I still see you in the zone quite often. Like we just talked about, you're so in the zone that everything else is on pause, and then the second you're available, you unpause and you give people your attention.
Yeah.
But I think, for me that resonated really hard. I'm just curious how you deal with it all, because you get a lot of notifications through.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm really not that perfect, because I do catch myself checking my phone. You know, we're all culprits to it, yeah? You know, where something really irrelevant, I'm having such a deep, meaningful conversation, and then bam, my attention's gone away. Something I do work on, I do switch I do put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So it'll be on Do Not Disturb at the moment. Yeah. Pretty much is all the time during the day. Occasionally you've seen me where it's buzzing away and I'll do something with it and switch it off. Nothing is too important. I go to my emails. We use Superhuman. Huge
big
fan
fans.
of.
Absolutely.
Like it goes through its moments, but on the whole, it's superb in the way of organizing my emails. I'm sure there are other softwares out there, so this isn't just a plug at Superhuman. No. But it's been fantastic for us, I think, mutually in organizing it. So things like that help me understand that. Okay, I'll go to my emails, tidy them all up, and then bam, I'll leave them alone. And unless it's a really important email, there's nothing that can't have my, can't wait, basically.
Yeah. For those who don't know, I would describe Superhuman as something that gamifies email. Would you? Is that how you described it to me initially?
Absolutely,
I think? Yeah. All right, be honest. How often are you on inbox zero? This is where you action every single email. That doesn't mean you reply to every single email. It means you might mark it as done, might mark it to remind you next week, might schedule to send your reply the next day. There's loads of cool little features. But the idea is once you've dealt with it for that day, it clears it and clears your mind, and something that you and I have absolutely loved.
Yeah, absolutely.
How often are you on inbox zero?
So okay, that's the thing I've got to grips with. Yeah. Firstly, very rarely am I on inbox zero. But how often am I below 12?
12?
All the time.
Okay. Really?
All the time.
I respect that. Because my number's about 20, 25.
No, mine's 12. Always. Yeah. Like, it may creep up to 18 over the weekend and stuff like that.
12's an even number. So
that checks out. No, I can be on 11.
Can you?
Yeah, I can be on them. But I don't get to zero, but I know, like, even today, just before I came up here and we did this, just cleared out the crap, the stuff that I've got to sort this payment out, I've got to do that, got to get back to this client and so on. Sorted it out, and that just fills me with some gratification because satisfaction. Both in that essence. So that's really great. I've set some reminders that I need to pay an invoice tomorrow, for some of our clients and so on. So it works. I'm someone who really started from very little organizational skills. Okay. I've never really had them. You speak to my mum. Oh yeah, she'll be open. Yeah.
Yes, I know, but like you speak to anyone's mum. Yeah, my mum will throw me under the bus in a heartbeat about my organization.
But the thing is, like, if you were to compare myself and my brother, my brother's always had it.
Interesting.
I probably in work, I can get my work done, but have I followed a good structure? Probably not. Because up until the age of about 20, 21, right? you have your work, your academics, but other than that, you have very little to organize.
Yeah.
And
arguably, the institution you're doing the work for will organize it for you.
Exactly, right? And they give you the tools, probably not the right tools, but they give you some tools to follow. And when you're thrown into the real world, you're... okay, it's not immediate because you don't have the responsibilities you may have at the age of 30 or 40 and so on.
Yeah.
But you are thrown into a ton of, okay, get going with your work.
Yeah.
And your workplace, your business, everything can give you all of that. And it's like, okay, well, this is too much for me and so on.
Yeah.
And I certainly found that with the business. Like it's got to its points where sometimes it can be overwhelming. Any entrepreneur out there would feel the same.
Yeah.
To some extent it can be. But organization is a huge part of that as well.
So what did your journey look like? Because the Ash I've known, I would argue, has always been relatively organized. Actually, now that I think back, you're far more organized now. But in that you used to dabble with the odd to-do list here and there. I see you almost every day with one now.
Yeah.
Superhuman, obviously. Walk us through your journey. How did you go from that? Because it leads on to Ram's question. But what's your journey look like?
So I think it segments it into a few parts. It's not just like I wanted to become organized overnight.
Okay.
It was organizing my current tasks and organizing the future. And I'll go on the first one. So organizing current tasks is like, okay, I have 10 things to do, and I was realizing that a lot of them I was putting on hold, and we all do that, right?
Agree.
Yeah,
I've done that.
I would argue you're very organized in my eyes.
Thank you.
Extremely organized, actually. Anything I've pretty much needed, you always do get back to eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Is this a sly way of saying I'm slow? No, I'm just
not at all. Quite the opposite. I mean, I'm quite the opposite.
I just saw that opportunity to take that shot.
No, definitely not. Whereas certainly in my early days, I was not that.
Okay.
I'd have people chasing me, what's going on here? And it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to do those things. Well, maybe a bit of procrastination, but certainly I was forgetful. Yeah. I'm just a forgetful person sometimes by nature. Again, I think a lot of us are. We've got a lot going on in our minds. The business was still early. Wasn't used to doing so much different stuff. So certainly in my current tasks, I was doing that, and I was starting to see the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
What goes wrong when you don't do it? I was putting off that legal contract that needed to be done. Oh, that deal didn't quite go through, or that was an extreme version, but that got delayed and I got told off by the client, or something happened there.
Fine.
Yeah, absolutely. All things can happen, and certainly in business, you do realize how even the smallest procrastination and putting something off can suddenly lead to something really big that you could have avoided. And as an entrepreneur, you don't mind putting the odd fire out. You'd rather make everything fireproof if you could.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really good way to put it.
Kind of reduce the probability of having a fire in the first place, and organization comes down to that. So that's current.
Yeah.
And I think what I realized is, look, we were a very small business. How do we get to a bigger one? We need to do more things. I need to do A, X, Y, and Z. I need to do A, B, and C. So many different tasks.
Yeah.
How do I get them done as well as the current business? And that comes from hard lessons of you need to organize yourself. But how about yourself? How did you get there?
In a very similar journey in very different environments. So you... I hope you don't mind me saying, but you've said this on the podcast before. You dived pretty much straight into entrepreneurship from university.
Yep.
I had a very different route. I went and I worked for several different institutions. I worked in retail. I worked in finance. And there's different levels of importance I've noticed. Yeah. Quite obvious now that I think about it, but like retail, I worked in management, and you can pretty much put anything off. I'm not even kidding. Yeah. If you work in retail, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anything that needs to be done, you don't necessarily have to do it. And this goes back to the previous episode where I talk about routine as well, where when I started to work in finance, everything had to be done within the deadline. Everything has an SLA, a service level agreement. Everybody, in meetings, that's what you do. You agree on an SLA, a service level agreement. You agree that I can get this turned around in 2 hours. I can do this in 30 minutes, 2 weeks. And, they're malleable to some extent. You can change it if you start to realize your process is a bit too long. But everything, and I started to compare the two, and retail, where I could put everything off, the only consequence was a lack of performance like 3 months down the line. Okay. Whereas in finance, the only consequence was like a couple days overdue, a couple of hours, a couple of minutes. In some SLAs, you're booked into a meeting. You're like, this couldn't be, you're put on a performance improvement plan. Yeah. It's such a rigid system that you cannot change it.
Yeah, understood.
Whereas in retail, it's very much the butterfly effect.
Okay.
If you skip that performance review, or if you don't have that difficult conversation with that person about attendance, then suddenly a couple months down the line, you have all of your staff not attending on time, and you've got the area manager on your case.
Yeah.
But the area manager doesn't care about the first week's poor attendance or anything like that. It's only when you have a full team, because that person saw that person get away with it. And that. So comparing those two, I do feel like working in finance, especially, I've always been very, how do I describe this? Like a numbers guy. I've always been like, you know,
I can vouch for that.
Thank you. To some detriment, but mainly to my aid. But I've always looked at how the finance company that I worked for, or fintech company that I worked for, I always admired how regimented it was, and it was like flexible in some areas, but in terms of the work and the service level agreements, it was very rigid. It was like, it has to be done.
Okay, so going from that, so you obviously went from retail, which was, I guess, limited rigidness.
Yeah, but the expectation that you organize yourself.
Sure, expectation was there.
Yeah.
To a more rigid structure,
Yeah.
and the expectation to organize yourself in finance. Yeah. To management here at WP.
Yeah.
So obviously you worked your way into management, but then as soon as you became a manager here, and then into directorship.
Yeah.
What was that, and how did that differentiate from any experience you had in the past?
There is one very clear differentiator, and sort of to sum up my previous point, at my retail job, the expectations were set, but no guide on how to get there.
Okay.
And then again, you only dealt with the consequences in a much delayed manner.
Sure.
Whereas at the fintech company, the expectation was very clear, but again, there's no roadmap to how to get there. You just need to have these deliverables, but much more immediate issues in your face.
Sure.
I'd argue that my time here at WP is very much a combination of the two. Whereas you can let some things, just simmer away in the background. Like, I should have done that, should have done. I've brought this up in previous performance reviews with you, where they were some of my regrets. I shouldn't have let that simmer. I shouldn't have let that. And so you feel that afterwards. But the difference is here, mainly in directorship. In management, it was a bit clearer, but in directorship, it's that the expectations or the targets are, to some extent, self-defined.
Okay.
Because I think you and I have gotten very good at our respective focuses within the business, which means you're very much busy and focused at what you're trying to do for the business, and I'm focused at what I'm trying to do for the business. And I felt a lot more comfort within myself when I started to see things that I wanted to do and started to actively pursue them. Because the main thing around directorship, you joke about this, so I know you think this as well, is, do people think I'm just sat here doing nothing?
Right.
And there will come times in directorship where that is the case. Like, I hate to admit it, but if it's a week, you got a problem.
Yeah.
But you might find yourself spending a day sat at your desk like, well, that deadline is not due, and it's pending other people's action. That's like, there's a lot going on, but there's nothing that is pending your particular action. And so the difference here is that that's why I do to-do lists. It's to maintain a momentum of feeling accomplishment. So it's seeking where I add value.
Sure.
That's what I'd say has been the biggest challenge. In the first few months, all of the fears come in, the imposter syndrome and all of that stuff. And then I've realized, once I build a rhythm, and once I start to, I think it's ultimately, maybe you went through this too, I'm very curious if you did, when you start to trust your gut. I don't know how to explain that, but you start to question, like, I want to move the business in this direction. And then you're just like, I don't know if that's the right thing. Like, I don't know if I want to organize that as much. I don't know if I want to put this person in that team. And then you do it and it works. And you're like, okay, well, my gut was right there. And you start to build a bit of momentum.
Right. And confidence.
And confidence in your actions as well, because just confidence. You trusted that the previous 5 decisions got you somewhere good. I'm very nervous for that one big downhill. But like, is that something you went through, of like trusting your gut to pursue something in the direction of the business?
Yeah, I think firstly, on your point of sometimes you have that free time and things like that, and you have that to-do list. I think often in more junior roles, you're often given a task, right? And you must complete that. And our productivity, or the way we feel, we get our dopamine from feeling accomplished, comes from, I've done that. I've hit the target.
Right?
Whereas in directorship, you set the targets for yourself. Which sounds great to the outside world, but suddenly it's a bit scary when you've, like you say, you've accomplished the things you need to do. Like, I don't know, I need to sit down with X employee, I need to a staff member, and we need to go through this. You've done all of that stuff. You've spoken to your accountants, you spoke to all your clients, all of that is done. And you have a few different choices. You can be like, right, I can take my time now.
Yeah.
I can go out and pursue new things, let my mind wander. All of that is okay.
Yeah.
You've got to use, as you're saying, the gut in the next point. You've got to use your gut in that and say, it's okay to be a little bit free. I've got to let my mind wander.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're driving the business. The ideas are coming from everyone, but we've got to make the decisive decisions. So I've stopped feeling guilty for letting my mind wander. Okay. And think that because they're the creative moments. Mm-hmm. The moments when you're thinking, oh, hold on a second, why aren't we doing this with that? Yeah. Why are we not utilizing this client to do this? I came up with a thing that we were obviously on Slack with a partner of ours. Yeah. And that just came from a moment of me thinking. Yeah, I just got what you meant. Yeah. So cryptic, but that was just from a moment of like, oh, I really like this. I was just browsing on the website and so on. I was like, let's try something there. And I know some of them, maybe my brightest moments, if I have them, have been from those times of wonder. Yeah. And letting the mind wander. So just on that productivity thing, it's okay in a directorship or a senior role or pretty much any role to a certain extent to let those minds like that, your mind wander and become creative.
Something that came up in a meeting that we just had actually mere 40 minutes ago was we were talking about a person who uses a tool to deliver results, but ultimately it's a system. And Ollie said something in the meeting. He said the tool came second, which I really liked. And this is what you just touched on, where you wanted to do all of these things and you needed the tools to get to them. I feel like for me, the tool came first. I'm always looking for productivity tools. I'm always talking to you about them. But I have a different justification for that, and I made a post on LinkedIn about this recently. But it was based around an Abraham Lincoln quote, which is, if you gave me an hour to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 45 minutes sharpening the axe. And that's coming very, very beneficial to me, and it leads me on to the question that Ram has for us. But it is about like sharpening the axe. How do people organize? How should people organize their time?
Sure.
And ultimately, the question is, how do we expect our team members to organize their work and get things done? Any thoughts on that? I have a few, but yeah, any initial preliminary thoughts before we dig into this?
I think this is where we might, I guess, in a softer term, clash because of our different ways of thinking. And as you're saying, tool. I think we do align on the core here. Yeah. But forgive me if I'm going astray from where your thoughts are.
Go on, I'm very curious.
But like from my angle, if I were to take my personal approach and then explain how we would work with team members about that, is I like to overwhelm myself with tasks and then figure out a solution to that.
Yeah.
So, for example, you've introduced me to some productivity tools in the past, and I love them, but I never stuck with them at the time because I didn't have that urgency to use them in that moment. Whereas what happened with me, and this is funny because I went full circle and I did end up using the amazing tool that you did set up for the rest of the team.
Gotcha,
which is Monday.com.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, and the reason I went full circle to that is because I had an urgency to use it. Okay. And I really needed it. And it was the only thing that could have solved my problems. And the fact is, I overwhelmed myself or the plan that I had with so much work was going on that it wasn't being coordinated, tracked. There was no kind of expectations and such that led me to Sam. I need to introduce this. So I guess in my essence, what my thinking is here, and could go against some leadership thoughts and stuff like that, and it'd be interesting, is that I think it's important to obviously give the team members the tools that they need, but not force them upon them all the time. Yeah. Let them realize why they need the tools and then have them ready for them when they do. So, for example, you can have team member A and give them the tools that they need. Yeah. Show them how to use them and so on. Give them all the tasks they need to do. Let them creatively figure out how they manage it, because then they'll realize the reason why you have that, or they may have better ideas in their own method, because we all deal with organization in our own way. But yeah, sorry, that's really just my...
very interesting. Yeah. You've actually given me a huge brainwave, actually, like a train of thought that I was thinking as you said that, because I would change your description of that. I don't think we clash on that. I think we clashed in the past, because what I've just been thinking now is something I always preface. People will ask me, like, I use to do. I don't know why it's called. It's to do, but spelt with a E, a U, and an X. I've been using that, and a lot of people ask me in terms of productivity tools and like what I should be doing, how I should manage my time. And I always preface it with, you got to find your way, because I've tried a shit ton of tools. None of them worked. I told you recently, I've had maybe 20 notepads that I don't use. Yeah. And my latest one, I hope my sister isn't watching, but it was my Christmas gift to her. And I got the wrong color. So I was like, fuck it, I'll keep it and I'll buy you another one. I still haven't bought her another one. That's why I hope she doesn't hear this yet. I will buy her a new one soon. But because I really like that notebook. To Do worked really well for me, but I tried Todoist. I tried a bunch of them before, and that's what I always preface it by saying is like, you got to find what works for you.
You're right.
In that, like, Ollie's massively anti to-do list. Him and I clash on this all the time. Yeah. But ultimately, I also have to recognize that he just might not be the guy who follows to do. He's very productive. He's insanely productive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you do have to find what works for you. But actually, for a while now, I've been trying to get people on board with Monday.com. Whereas for everything else that we train our staff and get our staff to do, we show them why. So we had an admin assistant 2 years ago now, Jesus, I think. And her first role was to change the SKUs on our inventory manager. I want her proper descriptive good names following a template. Yeah. And I wanted her to change all of it. And she did all of it. And then we needed some assistance in the packing station. And only when she did that, she came up to me and went, is this why? Because on the invoice, it's unclear what the product is. I was like, if I'd have shown her that in the first time, because she must have spent a week doing it, like, they're just making me do pointless tasks. They're just making me... Right. It's that context, right? And that's what you've just made me realize. I don't think I've been offering enough context as to why we use stuff like Monday.com or why I use To Do. Yeah. So no, that's actually been very insightful.
I think, I mean, like I said, it's a very raw thought that's been going on in my mind, but I realized it myself. Why was I not using some of these tools? Yeah. It's like, the fact is I didn't have that burning platform as to why I needed them. Yeah. But I came to you after we'd been discussing it for a while, and you even mentioned, are you sure you don't want to use Monday.com and so on? And I figured it out myself that it's the tool that we need to use, and I do use it regularly, certainly to help the other team members, and I'm still learning more about it, and I've learned more about it in a week or week and a half than I had in the year or so that we've been working on it. So it's been fantastic. And I think something Ollie mentioned to me a while ago is he said, Ash, to-do lists are a joke, as we know. He said, what you need to do is you need to take your calendar and you need to put your tasks in your calendar at a set time. Yeah. And at the time, I just chucked that whole idea in the bin. If he's listening to this, whenever, I'll tell him that. Okay. Because it just didn't work for me at the time.
He's going to call you in like 20 minutes.
No, but I'm now looking at it and I'm starting to do that. I'm starting to put stuff into my calendar.
I just started doing it.
Yeah, I'm not perfect at it, and we put the odd thing off. But it was Saturday morning, and I needed to check some business council rates letter that I got through on Friday, and I forgot about it. Saturday morning, plugged it into my calendar. At that particular time, I checked it, I filled it in, and I sent it off. And little things like that, I'm starting to realize, if I just allocate some, I would never have done it, or wouldn't have done it for another week or two. May have missed the deadline and so on. I put some time aside and I did it, and I'm going to start doing that with more and more tasks. That way I don't block a meeting in there. Other people know that that's my time to do things, and I know to myself that this is the time, otherwise I'm not going to do it again.
Bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, I want to talk to you about that because James Clear, New York best-selling author of Atomic Habits, talks about this, where they did a test on motivation and discipline or what have you. And what they did was they got a bunch of people to do two different things. They're trying to encourage them to go to the gym. Okay. And the people... I can't remember what the control group did, but the test group wrote on a piece of paper, I will go to the gym at this time. And then that's it, just on a piece of paper. They just wrote it. Didn't carry it around, they just wrote it. And the other group did something else. And it's a very, I feel like it was a lot more of a complex experiment where they were testing a few different variables. Sure. But the note he made was physically writing something out, like what you were doing, physically inputting it into your calendar. Puts you in the mind state of an initial buy-in, like you've already committed to do that. Right. Whereas if it's just free time and you're going to do that, it's quite hard to convince yourself. Whereas if it's something you were already planning on doing, then you're just actioning something you'd already planned. Sure. But yeah, he has a lot more details on that. But it just got me thinking a lot clearer. That's why I've blocked off my to-do list activities, TDLA, on my calendar every single day from 10:30 to 11:30. It's on all caps available for meetings, so you can book me in for them. But that's just a nudge every single day for me, because I noticed I was adding stuff to the to-do list, like you were just saying, and not completing them.
Yeah. And really, you'll notice that about 5 to 6. If they say you've got a list of 15 things, you can knock off at least 5 or 6 of them in no time at all. Like, they're so minor. It could be one thing that you need to do that you just you need to source. That's the reason you've not done it so quickly. So yeah, I think I'm going to start doing something like that, because
and with that also another hack that I've really enjoyed, and this has led to my flat being clean almost constantly. And like, I wasn't a slob before. I just it wasn't like I told you I need to have a really clean flat for me to make my fancy little mocha pot coffee and froth up the milk. I like to enjoy it in a very like tidy flat. And so the one thing that I learned from Ali Abdaal, he has something called the 2-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, then he'll just do it on the spot. The second thing is, a flip of that rule is, he'll convince himself to do tasks for just 2 minutes. So if you've got a pile of like dirty dishes, you only need to wash one dish. That's all you need to do. And James Clear talks about this with a lady that wanted to go to the gym every day of the year. Her mission wasn't to go to the gym, it was to hail a cab every day. That's all she had to do. She lived in New York. She only had to hail a cab. But what are you going to do in a gym gear and in the cab? Right? You're not going to go home. But hailing a cab is not as intimidating as people think. It's like, I can't be bothered to drag myself out of bed. But like, hailing the cab versus going to the gym, like, hailing a cab is really, really simple of a task. But you're already committed at that point. And so you're not just going to wash the one dish. You're there. Your hands are wet. You're cleaning. And I've realized I've started doing that all the time. I'd make myself a coffee, drink the coffee, and just leave it in the sink. And eventually that mug becomes 2 and a plate. Whereas now, like, I'll finish my coffee and just go, 2 minutes, clean it. And like, genuinely, since I found out about that, I've had a clean flat, like, to this day. So it's been a very, very
useful crazy
hack.
And how once you go that way, you're never going back. It's the same thing as like making a bed in the morning and so on.
100%.
I used to be a culprit back in the day. My mum would tell you, but again, she has a lot of
we can dig a lot. We need to get her on.
I don't think I've had a. Okay, could I make my bed better in time? Yeah, probably. But I don't think I've ever left my room without my bed being done for at least a good.
It's your first one of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think you've maybe seen that speech, but it's crazy.
The military fella.
But I wonder how many beds are now made because of that one video. But it's a brilliant thing, and. Yeah, the way he says it is so motivating, and it's almost like, okay, come on, Ash. Like, you may not be in the mood, but you can do that at least. You can get that going. So it's a great point. And, I mean, going back to Ram's question, kind of looping it back to, obviously, he mentions recommendations. Is that what he said, or how would you?
No, how essentially, it's quite a convoluted question, but very fascinating nonetheless. How do we expect the team to organize their work and do something?
Sure. So I think that comes back to what we try and do at the company, which is, we go on about this, but we genuinely do mean it, is everyone in the company is a mini entrepreneur. We've got to work on how we empower them to understand that and feel that more. But what we essentially want to do is we will have the tools available, there. But we want everyone to figure out by themselves the best way for them to adjust it and maximize their efficiency with their skills. So just like you said, as you came into directorship, things were suddenly, there was no ceiling. You suddenly have to think of things to do. You have to plan your own time accordingly. There's no deadlines that you set, maybe the odd client deadline, but that's about it. And it'd be great for what I think as part of this whole empowerment process, but it's really important for the team, is rather than us just setting random deadlines, is for them to realize the urgency behind the tasks. Like, the reason you need to finish that accountancy report is because of this, because of the repercussions. Then we can make this decision, we can send that to the client, and so on. And I think that needs to be found for everyone.
And there is a learning curve to it. But fundamentally, I think that's brilliant for 2 reasons. And not everybody will agree, by the way. I know, like I said, in finance, they're definitely not going to let you do that. They're like, do it our way, do it the FCA regulated way, do it X, Y, and Z. And that's fine. But I think from my perspective, the 2 advantages is, one, I feel like it inspires creativity. Everybody is their own individual. And like we just said, like, to-do list might not be the case for everybody. We can buy everybody the best to-do list, the best software, the best that. You and I are the only ones who use Superhuman. Maybe we should encourage and ask who else. But like, you've seen Rini, what she does on Chrome, right? She's got 20,000 tabs open, but you ask her to open like a tab that like you ask her for something, she'll find a tab in a heartbeat because they're all organized in columns and by color. I could never do that.
I didn't know until she showed me that. I didn't know Gmail had that facility.
Yeah,
brilliant.
And she just like, so everybody is different, and so I definitely think, and I said to the guys in sort of management of like, I really want you to find your own management techniques. Here are the tools. Here are how you set SMART goals, and they went on to do that a bit more in their course. But here are the tools that you need, but you got to do it in your own way, and that's how I was taught, and that's how I think is very beneficial. They've both come into their own in that department. But the secondly is the longevity. You know, you always have to think about. We would love for everyone here to stay with us for a very, very long, fruitful career. But ultimately, that's not real life. You know, we've had people who literally their dream job came knocking on their door. And it was a very amicable, departure, but they were going to their dream job.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, what have they taken from us? What skill set, what thing have they taken there? And I think that if you empower people to be their own entrepreneur, a mini entrepreneur within this business, to find their own ways to manage their time and to complete the task, you still need to be super clear on the expectation and deliverables,
of course, yeah.
The quality and when it needs to be done by. But if you let people find their own route, they might struggle in the beginning, but then they're going to go to the next place of employment and wow the trousers off of some people because they're going to be, something that we kept talking to Jamie, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he kept saying like he was just rearing to go. And I feel like it's because here that was the pace. It was like there's a billion things to be done. So if you have some free time, come ask us. There's that to be done. There's that to be done.
Yeah.
I think that's what he was just like, and now he feels like he's in his element because the work is piling on and he's ready for it. I'm not saying we gave him that. We were definitely a part of his journey. I'm not saying we gave him that, but that's ultimately what I think we have a bit of an obligation to give to everybody when they move on.
I think that's absolutely brilliant, and that's why we're here, right? There's so many reasons as to what we do, our mission, and everything like that. But empowering our team to the same kind of with that WP blood, so that wherever they go, they still have that ingrained in them, is fantastic. And I mean, we have very high-performing individuals, and certainly are going to go on to lead amazing careers wherever they are, whatever they do. And hopefully we accelerate, or we're able to offer them the ability, or the whilst they are with us, to accelerate that going forward, so that they can go into high-level management positions where that whole entrepreneurship thinking or that creativity is needed. And your traditional routes of schemes and grad schemes and so on may not always provide those for those individuals.
I think that absolutely, like, I really think like grad schemes are a wonderful, wonderful thing, but they are an extension of the hand-holding. Something that I've talked about time and time again on this podcast is I felt really lost after uni because it was essentially just somebody letting go of my hand, right? And so I found my way. It was something that I think has been ingrained in me from a very young age of like, you can do it. You're responsible for your own actions. And I definitely didn't have the parents that gave you a participation trophy. There's no way that I did. You win, they celebrate to the highest thing. If you don't, you just didn't win. But I definitely think it is, it's hard. It's definitely the harder route to take, but I definitely think it's the more rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a cracking episode. It was
I think that's a nice little round way to end it.
Definitely, and I think it was some good topics that would probably been on our mind for a little while, and it's good to
thanks for the question, Ram. I know we said we weren't going to do them, but I think we just had a chat, and then actually, did you intend to do that?
Honestly, I did. I
think we just led to the question.
I'm not really sure where we went, but
I'm
it was
happy
really
about
good,
it.
and it's actually opened my eyes to a few things that.
Likewise, I now know how to talk to the team about Monday.com. So thanks for that, man.
No, fantastic. But thanks, guys. Thank you for listening wherever you're listening: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Google. Anchor.
Dude, we have one viewer from Australia and one was in America. So
let's keep that growing.
Yeah.
Thanks, good guys. On you guys. And we please do like, subscribe, comment as well wherever you are. It's a pleasure. And if you like the new settings as well, if you are on YouTube, do let us know. If
we could do this.
If we've not tidied the desk properly, do let us know as well. But I think the team have kept it pretty clean. So.
It wasn't too bad. I feel like we should just admit it though. Like I set this part up, and then Ash came upstairs, and then like there's a bunch of cleaning equipment there. Ash went around tidying everything. The gang do keep this place pretty decent. Like it's not the biggest space, but they do make the best use of it. I think.
But no, brilliant. Good chatting to you.
Yeah, likewise, man.
Right.
See you in the next one. Oh, my arse on them stools, though. I will cut that bit out.